hit a line. She the realest, ooh, she the realest. You can tap in, I will always get a business to empower you so that you can do every and anything that you want to. Kicking it with Coach LA, it's time to listen to conversations that's gonna keep you winning. Sunday nights at 10 p.m. on the air and he just calling. Conversations with Coach La 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 La. Coach La 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 La.
To another episode Conversations with Coach La La La. How y'all doing tonight? Woo, I tell you, Sundays be moving and shaking for your favorite around the way therapist, but I am here. I am in the building. I am in the driver's seat. I hope y'all can hear me well and get my sound right going on over here. So, oh my goodness, it has been a lot going on over these last few days. So yesterday I did an event with 1102 and Blue. It was a fundraiser to revitalize their event space on Blue Hill Avenue. So shout out to them. Some of the city officials came through, like Julia Mejia and Liz Miranda. It was really, really an awesome time. Shout out to Parties from Up Above. Shayaka, she did her thing. I really just love seeing the community come together and support one another. So that was a beautiful thing to be able to see. Now, you guys know season 7, we've been bringing all the heavy hitters and all of the individuals that have so much insight on healing. And we've been digging into the past. And, series 2 has been all about doing that self-work. So tonight on Conversations with Coach La, the whole thing is to bring it all together, right? You know, I like to make the connections and bring everything, all the pieces together. And I had the opportunity to get reintroduced to someone I actually knew from, I would say maybe childhood, maybe be a good way to put it, my sister's friend. And come to find out, she has her own podcast. And what I loved about this is that her podcast couldn't have been better positioned, because I've been talking about being positioned to everything that I had planned for season 7, and to find someone who had all of the pieces, right? So the spiritual piece of it, the trauma history piece of it, the inner child work piece of it, just like the family drama piece of it, the pulling it all together and doing service and being able to take your pain and make it into your passion or your purpose. She just has all of the elements, right? And so I said to myself, wow, thank you, Lord. Thank you for bringing different people across my path to be able to introduce to the audience. Because, the whole point of Conversations with Coach La is to bring folks to the table and to really open up what it's like to talk to a therapist, but also to have these really difficult conversations, because we all want to heal. I think most people want to find happiness, find peace, have better relationships. So tonight we have a Bostonian, born and raised. Not only that, she started her first episode of her podcast back in October 2020. She is an ordained minister. She actually became a minister in 2010 out in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. She also has been doing work in the correctional facility, working with women in Framingham and ministering to them, which I thought was really great, because sometimes we have to come outside of the constructs of the traditional church to be able to bring spirituality and bring healing and bring Christ into places where most people maybe will not want or don't feel comfortable going into. And I know that service is one of the quickest ways to start to, I would say, spark healing, is to find a way to serve and to give back and help other people heal. However, there's a little caveat to that. It also triggers stuff in you, and sometimes you helping other people actually is really helping yourself. That's a whole nother story that we'll go and jump into in a second. But she also has that story too. And I think you guys are going to get a lot out of having tonight's conversation with Miss Jennifer Charles. I'm going to welcome her to the virtual couch, and I hope that you guys will give her a nice warm welcome as she comes and she enters the studio. Let me get her sound together. It's her first time actually being on the air on the radio, so y'all be nice to her, okay? Because she already, after I got everything situated, she's like, it's so loud, and what do I do now? And I'm like, I just was over there showing her all this stuff. She wasn't paying no attention to what I was saying. So hopefully this goes without a hitch. Okay, guys? I hope it goes without a hitch. Let me bring her right on here. Jennifer, what's up, girl? How you doing?
Hey, how's everybody doing out there? I'm excited to be here.
Listen, one of the things I love about this woman is her laugh, okay? She has this infectious laugh and made me think about Kevin Hart with the whole thing about laugh at my pain kind of thing, because I'm listening to her podcast, and this podcast was such some heavy stuff, and she's just laughing and giggling about certain parts of it. And I said, oh yeah, she's a classic comedian, right? And talking about some real tragic stuff. And the whole time she's on here giggling, goo goo gaga giggling, okay? So welcome to Conversations with Coach La, Miss Jennifer Charles.
It's so good to be here. I'm excited. That's all I can keep saying is I'm excited.
I love being able to be in the position to bring people to larger platforms. As you know, shout out to everybody that's on Instagram. I see y'all. Shout out to everybody on LinkedIn. And I'm now also on Twitch as well. So shout out to everybody on Twitch that's tuning in. I'm still trying to get familiar with that, but that's my son's people over there. So that was me trying to connect with the younger crowd. So I'm gonna build my Twitch following as time goes on. And then also I'm on YouTube. So shout out to my YouTube listeners. Shout out to YouTube. YouTube has been showing up big for me recently. My numbers is just, they said I'm above average for other people with the same numbers as me. So y'all really helping out a sister. I think right now I'm over like 500,000 reach for a little small podcast like me, little radio show. That's like AKA mini going viral. So thank you guys for joining and all of that good stuff. So tell me though, who is Jennifer Charles outside of this podcast, outside of being an ordained minister, and not from the place of your trauma, which we'll talk about that in a second, but who are you? I ask every single person who comes on to tell me who they are outside of all of the accolades and all of this. How would you describe yourself?
I usually have the same response. I tell it to myself all the time, oh, I'm just Jen, and that, really, I'm pretty reserved. So though I'm loud, maybe the loudest person in the room, that has changed so much, so drastically. Yet when I'm home, I just enjoy being home. I'm a homebody, outside of that. Enjoy the movies and, enjoy just, if I can get a good laugh and I'm happy, that really makes a difference. Outside of service, as you would say, through ministry, I really don't live no other life. So, that really is, who I am.
Yeah.
And I try to keep that my focus.
Yeah. So I love that you gave me your activities and the things you enjoy. But if you had to give me 3 adjectives to describe yourself, what would those be? And shout out to LinkedIn. I see you. Hey, unless you actually register with your name, it just says LinkedIn user, but I see you though. So hi, what's up, Mina Shea, Style Journey? She didn't log in on us too. Shout out to you. So 3 adjectives to describe who you are.
Big in every way.
Here we go. Here we go. I love her already. She said, listen, I'm big in every way. You know,
good.
I'm taking up space
Yeah.
unapologetically,
Oh
both
yeah. We need to get into
figuratively
that.
and literally.
We need to get into
Yes, yes,
that.
yes. Shout out to Jay Hunt, Cuban
Um,
Mike. I see you out there too. Thank you so much for tuning in. I think this says Natalie. What's going on, Natalie and Rylan? And my brother Takeover Photography. Thank you for checking in on the Instagram check-in. I appreciate y'all. All right, so you big in every way.
I would have to say joyful.
Okay,
Joyful,
okay.
even when I'm not really feeling the joy, I'm able to offer it.
Yes.
So that makes a difference, I think.
Okay.
And I think I'm just a good conversation,
Yes.
and that's just kind of I think that's good.
Yes, yes, yes. I would definitely have to say, from what I could tell from your podcast, that is definitely, you are a conversationalist and you have taken your story, your narrative. And one of the things that you said that I want to make sure that I quote, you said, this journey has been much like the prison ministry, charged with helping others, only resulting in helping yourself, and that it has brought you much healing and freedom through your own testimony, with hope of helping someone else become free. And I thought to myself, the idea of freedom. And I think what we don't understand is we can become prisoners in our own minds.
Yes.
By replaying those tapes, ruminating on what has happened to us, and that kind of can keep us stuck. I think that's the place that depression, anxiety, addiction, all of that lives, in that rumination of what happened to you, not being good enough, thinking it's your fault. And I had wrote down before you came on, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal, to learn, and to evolve.
Yes.
And I think what we want to really nail, put the nail in the head. Is that how you say that? I'm saying that saying
the
wrong.
nail in the coffin.
I don't want to be a coffin, because
we don't want to be a coffin.
no, you know what? That's not a bad way to put it, because in everything there is something that has to die.
Yes.
And sometimes that trauma has to die.
Definitely.
And those memories have to die. So nail in the coffin could work. But we want you guys to really think about vulnerability, transparency, and building capacity. And that is going to result in healing. So that's really what we talk about tonight. Okay. So that's what this virtual couch is all about.
All right.
So tell me about the start of the Loudest Mouth in the Room.
Oh boy. If I'm honest, I was at a 3-day revival, and on the third morning I woke up and I just heard the voice of the Lord say, do a podcast. And I was like, what? I've never even heard a podcast before, though they're very popular. And it took a little time for me to warm up to the idea, because I really didn't know what to do. And sometimes that fear holds you back, because I'm not tech savvy, all these things. And I found myself just kind of being honest. One episode I said, hey, you're going to hear a train in the background.
Right. What's interesting about what you're saying too is that tonight's episode is infectiously named Mind Over Matter, reframing negative self-talk. And I think sometimes the negative self-talk is just like, how am I supposed to do that? I'm not tech savvy. I don't know how to do that. How am I supposed to, like you said, you had never heard of a podcast before. So how am I supposed to do something I've never heard of before? And so we've been really, this whole season is all about breaking barriers, right? And healing, growth, transformation. And so getting over those thoughts in your head that tell you that you can't do something, or that you don't know how to do something. So how did you eventually just go ahead and say, yep, I'm going to do it?
I did it full of doubt, full of fear. I still do it with doubt and fear. I just, at first I thought, I'm going to do an episode every 2 weeks. And it just didn't turn out that way. Now I may do an episode. It just depends. Sometimes it takes 6 months for an episode, because I realize the route or the lane that I'm in, it's heavy. It's very heavy. This is talking about my life. It's talking about the transition from being in a broken place, trying to get to a healed place. And you have to navigate through all of that, the hard things. And it made sense to do an episode when I feel like it's time to do an episode, instead of following the wave of, oh, it's been 2 weeks, or it's been, so that when I give an episode, I'm giving you something of value. I'm giving you something with substance, something that is truly, authentically a testimony to, hey, this is what I learned. Because the podcast is really about lessons that I learned a little too late. So there's always going to be a relation to something somebody did, unfortunately, or something that I did, and what the
She be telling all her business on this podcast. It's like a Tyler Perry, what Tyler Perry movie meets
I need Tyler to
meets
reach out.
Dear Jane. That's what it's like, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my goodness, oh no, what?
Tyler, I need you to reach out.
Listen. It's definitely thought-provoking and inspiring. So that takes us to my new shout out to my transitional little things I got today. So I want to give a shout out to Payne. DJ Payne hooked me up with these. So next up, we're going to talk about, what does therapy mean to you? And I messed it up. I messed it up because I didn't take you off the screen. Okay, we're going to run that back, y'all, because I got to run it back because I'm learning new stuff on my show. Okay, one more time. Here we go. Okay. Yay, it worked. So what does therapy mean to you, right? Because as you were telling all of these things on your podcast, I was sitting there and I was like, how did you even work through that? And I had Bishop Dickerson come on, and we were talking about the intersection of spirituality and therapy and having both. So for you, what does therapy mean to you, and how did it play into your healing process?
I've never sat on a couch, but I realized, shortly after starting the podcast, that I'm providing a couch for someone else. In that I have to be strategic in knowing what direction I'm going in with what I'm saying, and allowing it to be therapeutic for me. I'm not just telling a story because it's a bad story, or it's, this is going to shock you. I'm telling it, but I really am looking to find my own freedom and my own healing through that process. I hope that answered your question.
No,
I kind of feel like I did.
No, you're doing that in terms of, I like bringing people on the show who haven't sat on a couch.
Yeah.
Contrary to popular belief, every single person doesn't need to go to therapy, and we have normalized it to a point that sometimes we can weaponize going to get the help, which is why some people don't want to go get the help, because then it translates to something is wrong with you, versus it being something that is for self-discovery and self-care and just overall helping you feel better, right? It's like you go to your doctor's appointment and there's maintenance, and you just go because it's a way of making sure you know what's going on with yourself. Yes, you go when you're sick or when there's something wrong, but most of it is just to make sure everything's just on track.
Yes.
Therapy can be like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be that something is wrong with you because you go to therapy. Everybody has mental health, guys. Let me say that again. Let me look at camera.
Yes.
Everybody has mental health, just like you have physical health. So everybody has to manage and take care of their mental health. Now, does that mean you need to go to a therapist? Not necessarily. You could do that just by reading and exercising and taking good care of yourself, and really taking accountability for your own actions.
Yes.
Because sometimes I think we just blame everything on people. And again, I said earlier, everything's not your fault, right? And when you were talking about on your podcast, sexual abuse and just being part of a blended family, that's none of that could you ever have controlled.
Correct.
Right? Nothing you can do about it. But what I love about your story is, as an adult, you have been making peace with it and finding a way to not perpetuate that narrative or that same, I don't even want to say hate, but just lack of consideration onto other people.
Yeah.
And what do you think prompted you to be able to know to do that? Because not everybody comes out of what you came out of, with wanting to be a better person and not like just be mean and resentful
Yeah.
and angry.
Yeah. I think I think it this may sound a little ebonic, but I think it'd be in there. The resentment or the hatred of some sort. If we acknowledge it. But I want to say that I think you said, how did you know to become better? I think if you see something long enough that isn't well, we ourselves should say, I got to do better than that. I try to treat people the way I wanted to be treated. We talk about transparency. I became very transparent because I've been lied to a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
became transparent because I wasn't treated well and I was misunderstood. So if I could be as honest as I can be, and sometimes it didn't always come out right. I didn't always say the right words, or my intention was missed. But the hope is that if I be transparent, then maybe that would vouch or speak for me, which I had to learn that could be a complete fail. But in that, if I treat you well, I'm hoping that you treat me well, because I know what it feels like to be rejected. I know what it feels like to be treated improperly.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that I try to focus on. But it took time to get there.
Right.
I bruised people along the way. I beat up people along the way with my mouth because of those pains, because of those, those hurts. It said hurt people, what hurt
Hurt
other
people.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. You know, it still takes a lot of courage, I think, to even acknowledge that. And, I have on the screen right now, you can't heal what you won't face.
Yeah.
And that mirror work is that radical honesty with yourself. And I think acknowledging, what, I wasn't treated the way I wanted to be treated, and what was done to me was wrong and shouldn't have happened.
Right.
Even saying I'm angry,
Mm-hmm.
I'm mad, I hate them, right? I think sometimes we will try to repress or suppress those emotions because they're negative, right?
Yes.
And we will immediately say, well, I should love them because they're my family, or they're my dad, or they're my mom. And I think the pressure to love someone when you really don't is also, I think, gaslighting and a cognitive distortion, and it doesn't really allow space for you to be able to heal when you are masking or not being allowed to say your true feelings. So
Yes.
I appreciate you saying that it still lives there, because sometimes people think because you move on.
Yes.
And when I say move on, because life and time is moving.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't want to move people, it's moving.
Yeah.
Right? Time is going.
Mm-hmm.
And when they see people doing things, working, achieving goals, success, they often don't realize that people are doing that often in tangent and in conjunction with something that could be really hurtful, painful, or traumatic. And people will sometimes think that you have to forgive and not think about things to be able to have a successful life and move on and still be a good person. And I want to challenge that. I think you can have both. I think you can still have joy, happiness, success, and still say, you know what, I dislike a person. I don't appreciate how they treated me, and my boundary is I don't want to have anything to do with them.
Right.
Like, I think sometimes we think that we have to allow people back into our lives when we let it go.
Yeah.
And I think forgiveness is a process. That was another thing that came up in our last episode, is it's not going to happen overnight, and it shouldn't be forced upon people. And I think that also allows people sometimes to be stuck because they haven't forgiven. So because they haven't forgiven, they feel like they can't have joy, happiness, or treat people well because they still have that pain. And I think there's space for both. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that forgiveness is, I agree. Forgiveness isn't instant. It's a slow work, but we should be working at it, because to let it fester, it just grows into bitterness, and it just births more seeds. But the truth is, you can have issues in your childhood, and you're carrying that. But what about as you become a young adult? You get more. Then you become a grown adult. You get, more, because there's always going to be challenges. And so when we talk about, forgiving, and we talk about pretty much just existing with pain, the best outlet is as it's been said, we do need to speak to people that we can trust,
Mhm.
that can help us navigate. I like how, sometimes we need a mediator, a marriage, they need a mediator,
Mhm.
someone who isn't a close in quarters with the couple. They have to mediate the situation because they can give a biased opinion and help them through it. And sometimes we need to speak to someone who may not be so close, to the situation, and it can become very helpful in
I,
that.
I do. I think that sometimes just new information in general, right?
Definitely.
Different perspectives help you to sort of decide if you are ready to let it go.
Yes.
Um, how is holding on to it holding you back? And sometimes I think we hold on to things because that's the only action that we can take, and that's our way of allowing anyone that knows to know that something bad happened to you and you're still upset about it.
Yes.
So it's like, what else can I do? I feel like I don't have any other power and control. So this is what I have control over, is my forgiveness, right? The only thing is often the other person has moved on, gone on with their life, and they have no clue that you are not living your full life.
Yes.
Right. And so that's why people say forgiveness is more for you. So I challenge, and I put this out here, and I know this is very controversial. What if I said you don't have to forgive the person? Let's stop making that the goal. And the goal is just for you to do more things that you enjoy, and to stop allowing that to not allow you to live in the moment. Maybe the idea that it's constantly pressed upon that you need to forgive to let go. And because you're not ready, then that gives you the permission to stay stuck. But what if I just free you of the idea of having to forgive? It's a process. You'll get to it when you get to it. I just want you to live right now. So if you're around people that make you smile, and you have a career that you love, and you have all these other things, why not in those moments allow yourself to enjoy that versus allowing that situation to stop you? Like,
can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that I think about one of the things that's helped me is acceptance.
Okay.
Because you're not going to always be able to go back and have that conversation so that you can get the what is that called, when you're trying to get the closure?
Yes,
You're
the
trying to get the
closure.
closure. You're fighting for that closure.
That apology.
Yeah.
For people to take responsibility.
But I tell you, most people don't take responsibility.
You know why they don't? It's because of their own shame and guilt.
That's
and
it.
and usually what people do is they suppress their bad parts too, so that they can move on and so that they
Yes.
can live. If they acknowledge things that they did, a lot of people wouldn't even be able to get up in the morning and do what they got to do, because or they get high, they get drunk, or they do other things, believe it or not. So a lot of times when you think that people are not suffering, they are. They're suffering their own silent battles that you don't know anything about. So I don't know. But I do know. I hate when I say I don't know. I think that's just an automatic response because it gets heavy.
It does.
And I know that a lot of people who listen to my show got a lot of stuff that they're carrying. It's like that Erykah Badu song, Bag Lady, like it's like that. So I know that people want to let stuff go, but they often feel like they don't know how.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about this more and more as we think about mind over matter. How do you move forward when things are so egregious, right? Almost they're so unforgivable, right? Like I don't, I was listening to what you shared, like to have sexual abuse happen from loved ones. How do you forgive something so egregious? And you never forget that, right? So having space I think anger there's nothing wrong with these emotions. They're just emotions. If you are angry and you don't want to let that go and forgive a person, I think that that's your choice. But that doesn't mean that you can't still have a life, a family, love, joy. Sometimes it is like, no, I'm not going to that family function. I know what you did to me, and no, it's not okay for me to break bread with you. And guess what? All you family members are going to know it too. If that person's coming, I ain't coming.
That's it.
Right? And how about this? I'm still living my best life. I got everything that I want, but that person right there, I will not break bread with them. Does that mean that I haven't forgiven them? Does that mean that I'm holding on to a grudge if I'm living my life just because I don't want to go to a family function and sit across the table from the person who molested me? Like, I don't think that means that you haven't forgiven a person or that you're holding a grudge. I think it's just, that's a boundary.
I believe that you have a choice. You have the right to, as you said, to create that boundary. And if there's an opportunity, and you find that there's something you want to do, then you should. But if it's something that because not everybody finds it easy to address this. We talk about sexual abuse or anything, that traumatizing, to sit down and try to hash that out. It can be very difficult. There's no force to, of course, we say forgive, but there's forgiveness on different levels. And that boundary may be about as much as you're able to handle. Not everybody's able to handle the full conversation.
And then when we talk about handling it, like, what exactly though? And this is something that I have in therapy, which is why I think people should go to therapy, right? Is what exactly is it to handle it if what you want is an apology and acknowledgement of accountability from someone who never has demonstrated that they ever are going to do that? So going to the person who's harmed you, abused you, hurt you, expecting for them to help you with the healing process when they're the one who inflicted it on you is usually just not productive.
Well, yeah, I think that healing is your part. I think that if you're looking to go to, if that's what you think is the only thing that's going to heal you, then you'll miss the healing. Sometimes, allowing yourself to, I never approached my abuser.
Mm-hmm.
I never went to him and said, "Hey, why did you do this?" And we had plenty of Thanksgivings, we had plenty of Christmases. He couldn't really look at me. The conversation wasn't, really there. But and it was not really something that I wanted to address. And
Mm-hmm.
when I did address it, I addressed it on the podcast.
Right.
I didn't really have that opportunity to, do the face to face. And I believe that because you talk about having a life, even though you've endured pain, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that we have to think of, who we want to be. Who do you want to be? Where are you trying to go? And then you begin to, work towards that. But then there's hindrances. Our character makes a big difference. How we treat people. Some places, we gotta dim down some things because we can't just act any kind of way. Anywhere we go, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things was I was very harsh with my mouth.
I'm so glad that she's about to go there.
I was so harsh with my
mouth. Let's pause it for right there. Let me just put this up here because we about to get right into it.
Sorry, no, I just
listen. Let's have a conversation about being the loudest mouth in the room, okay? Because I think a lot of people have that testament of being loud, funny, abrasive, ready to fight. You always, they say most bullies, they bully as a protection.
That's it.
Right? Like, before you come for me, I'm already trying to pick out everything that's wrong with everybody so already not to mess with me. So when we're thinking we're not handling things or addressing things, it comes out somewhere else where we overcompensate somewhere else. So, I think that the reason why I'm inviting people to these other perspectives is that a lot of people are showing up in the world aggressive, a chip on their shoulder, passive aggressive, closed off, emotionally unavailable. It's a plethora of things in the emotional damage baggage that people end up with, because what they won't do is tell family members or tell a significant other, no, this doesn't work for me anymore.
Right.
Because with that acknowledgement, something dies. And sometimes the connection may die. The potential for a relationship might die. The idea that they're supposed to love you might die, because again, you're not supposed to do that to me if you love me.
Correct.
Right? And just because you have a title of, mother, father, sister, brother, doesn't necessarily mean that you have the characteristics or the behaviors or even the emotional capacity to really fulfill that label. And I think because they have those labels, we have those expectations of these individuals, and sometimes they fall short. And that's really the radical acceptance. And you talked about that, is that your family members never ever made space for what you were making space for, which was for you to be their sister, their daughter. And coming to the terms with that is part of the healing, but that doesn't mean that now I want to have a relationship with you and I want to go to Thanksgivings. And you said that. You was like, well, we don't have to pretend anymore. Now we're all free.
That's it.
Right? You said we don't have to pretend anymore. We're all free. And I think that although I know that's hard, sometimes we're sad because we're looking for people who have titles to show up in a particular way because society says your mother should love you, your daddy should protect you, your brothers and sisters you should have a good rapport with. But what happens when that's not your truth? Yes. And you can't move forward and let that go. And they say, forgive them. Forgive them? Forgive them for not wanting to not wanting to have a relationship with me? No, how about I accept it, I let it go, and I look at, I have sisters that's part of my sorority, or maybe I have my church sisters, or maybe I gotten married and I have sisters and sister-in-laws, or maybe I just got sister friends that treat me like sisters, but I still want that from those people. And because I don't get it from them, I have this whole gaping hole that I will never ever close, and that's what's keeping me stuck. But what if I just let it go and I stop looking for it from them, and look how I'm blessed with all this love and attention and sisterhood from over here? I'm inviting people to look at what they do have and what is going right, because you talk about planting seeds of hope. And I think sometimes this pressure to forgive is precisely what's keeping people stuck, because if they can't give the forgiveness, they can't be free.
I think that I can agree with that, but not 100%.
And I want this to be a good convo.
No, only because, I have to lean on my faith, and, the Bible says that, forgive others so that God can forgive me, and in that, I think that, it makes it nice that, and that's what I'm saying. You're not going to always be able to go to them. You're not going to always get that, but we still have to do the work within ourselves that may not involve the offender. You know what I'm saying? We may not be able to have that conversation, and I may not be able to tell them, look at what you did, and they may not be able to tell me, well, I didn't do nothing, because most times that's how it goes. Or they may actually acknowledge what they've done. But I do know that I have to do the work, because this unforgiveness, a lot of people, we get sick from carrying around these this trauma. So we have to do the inner work. And as I was saying, that when we talk about wanting to live a happy life, how happy can you be if we're not really addressing the things that is really frustrated us, is really has harmed us, and we're really warring on the inside. So I really do believe in, the power of prayer, that, we can find it in ourselves to be accepting of what happened, and also forgiving, the offender, and then we're able to move on. And now we can start focusing on, the things that we need to fix within ourselves, because of the trickle effect of that pain, of that drama. It carries with us, and it changes us, and life shapes us. And sometimes we need to break that mold, and revert to an innocent place where, I've had to do the work. I've had to go back and be soft again. And it's not easy, because I'm like, whoa, they just punked me. But, that's not that for real. Like, what did she just say? Did he just,
Right.
But, it's a work that, I desire, because I want to be better. And so if in order to be better, for me, because everyone may not agree, but in order for me to be better, I have to forgive, because when we forgive, we don't have to think of it anymore. We don't have to torment, because it torments us. I can't believe that. I can't believe she. I can't believe he. But if I do the work with the help of God, I need the help of God, because he, and I have to go here, because this is who I am, But
research says and shows that women are twice as likely to ruminate.
What's that?
Ruminate, to think about something over
Yeah.
and over and over and over again and to
Yeah.
play the tape back. You mentioned, forgiveness, and I think often the forgiveness piece we can reframe it and reshift it to forgiving ourselves.
Yes.
And I think sometimes, again, the pressure to forgive the person who did what they did,
Mm-hmm.
for some people feels like the acceptance of what they did when it was wrong. And I can't accept that. My mind won't accept
I
it,
see.
right? My mind cannot conceptualize or accept that you would have done that, right?
Mhm.
So now it's, what role did I play in it? And for some people, they feel like it's their fault. They feel like it's something they did or didn't do that caused this upon themselves. So
Definitely.
often what I do is, you need to forgive the little girl who didn't have anyone to tell her what to do,
Correct.
who didn't know how to protect herself, who was still looking for these adults and these people to love her, who was still looking for people pleasing and figured, I just won't say anything and it'll get better or they'll stop, to forgive that, to allow her to be free from, this is my fault and why doesn't anybody love me?
Yeah.
And I think when we shift the focus from the people who harmed us to forgiving the pieces that we feel like we are ashamed of or are our fault, we can then put the blame back on who it rightly is supposed to be on, which is that person who did that was an adult who should have never done that and should have been punished.
Yes.
Right. And so by doing so, I give it back to you. I give it to you to figure it out. And you go ask for forgiveness for yourself. Right? Because I forgive the role I played and I'm gonna go have my best life and I give you to God.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right. And,
which is me not holding a grudge or being resentful or hoping that you get hit by a tractor trailer or you die. That's that's the extent of it. But I think for some clients that I work with, that has allowed them to feel more free, because working on trying to forgive the person becomes such a chore that it keeps them mentally in turmoil because they really can't give the forgiveness.
Yes.
And like you said, it's a process. I don't know if it's going to take you a year, 5 years, 10 years. So as long as you're still working through that, how are you going to do that in tangent? Because you feel stuck, you feel hurt, you're in pain. And the only way you're going to be free is if you forgive the person. So there's your Achilles heel and there's your shackle. Yeah, I know that's a lot. But listen, again, I personally say work on the inner child stuff. So all right, we told you it was heavy. It's heavy stuff. I know a lot of people could even be a little triggered, but here's the positive of this, is that although you may experience this, you already have overcome so much by the fact of you just even getting up every day or even tuning into this show is a desire to do better, to want better, and to feel better. So I want you to focus more on that. And that's really, really what I'm always talking about, is betting on self.
That's it.
Right? So I got a little thing. I got something for that too. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about my new technology. So y'all look like I've got all this new stuff. So I got my bet on self, right? Y'all see this? Yay. Thank you, DJ Payne. So bet on self moments. We've talked about this on and off air, right? But these are those times where you decide, if not now, then when? If not you, then who? And you really, really make the decision to take control of your own healing. And I think that's where the mind over matter really, 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 really starts to show up, right? Is how will you make those decisions to heal, to grow, and to change? And for you, what do you think was your defining moment where you started to bet on yourself?
I think when I decided to speak about, it took me 2 years to do that one episode that we're talking about. 2 years in between the last episode that I had done. And I think I was ready for the family to know what you did wasn't right.
That's what I'm talking about.
And
See?
I was ready for them to know that I'm no longer a little kid. I'm a full-grown adult.
That part.
And you you're not going to continue to treat me any kind of way.
Yep.
In order to do that, I had to,
Blow this spot up.
I did. And sometimes, sometimes people need to feel the sting.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't really think anybody was listening.
Wait a minute. So wait, again, I told you like this is like Dear John, Dear Jane, Tyler Perry, right? So she's like, I'm just gonna get on here and talk my talk.
Let me tell you.
But yeah, people was listening, honey.
Yeah, no, listen, and I don't look at the views and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I post it and then I'd be depressed for a couple of days because I'm exposed.
Yes.
I'm not just exposing them, I'm exposing me too. So it's a very naked experience.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, but people were commenting and stuff. So I had to see the views. This thing got up to like 400. I said, oh my God, and in that, you realize people are listening. And they were listening and they weren't too happy. But it wasn't about them. At the end of the day, it's your story to tell. It's your experience.
Oh no, it was about them.
But it was about them.
It was about them. And I think when you put that mirror up and you say, you hurt me.
Yeah.
And this bothered me and I'm still carrying it.
Yeah.
And this is where I go back to, I think when you do that, to me, that's the catalyst for forgiveness because you give it back to them.
Yeah.
As long as you're holding the secret and you're holding space that you're still trying to break bread with them and you're still seeking out their validation, you're still looking for their love, they never ever really have to acknowledge what they've done.
And can I say, after that episode, everything you just said, like the need for the validation, the need for their love, the need for their, attention or whatever, all of that just ceased. Like it was so freeing. It was like a ball and chain. There's a freeing experience that, now you feel like you really could do anything because now you have the space in front of you to go forward. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. It makes tons of sense.
So yeah, I agree.
Like big time sense.
I agree. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Absolutely. May the church say amen. And I think that you have to be able to realize that part of your healing is acknowledging and calling it out.
Yeah.
Right. And I know for a lot of people, you don't do that because you want the relationship still.
Come on. Come on.
Let me play that again.
Yes.
Yeah. You want the relationship still. Yeah. And because you still want the relationship, you haven't really acknowledged or accepted that for you to say this, it may have to actually die. And what you're actually killing is the fantasy of what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And that'd be a bad marriage, a friendship or whatever, is that in your mind, you have something that you want and you're still holding on that it will get better. Right. That they will be a better person. So you're holding on. And so when you think you haven't forgave them, it's not really that you're really even really looking for the forgiveness. You want the sorry, you want the closure, you want them to validate that they were wrong. And you can validate that. And that's what I often really work with people on, is that what happened. And when you were telling the story, it's like you were saying that I can't even believe that I'm even saying that this really happened, because saying it is making it real.
Yeah.
So if you had a hard time saying it to make it real, imagine the people who do the stuff. Acknowledging it to you means that they now have to make it real, and they have to accept that dark part of themselves that actually did that.
Exactly.
Baby,
exactly.
That is hard. To walk around and be like, I really molested someone or I raped somebody. Yeah. No, as long as I can live in my little la-la land and literally disassociate from my own behaviors, I don't really have to deal with me.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I'm telling people, don't worry about trying to forgive that person no more. Yeah. Focus on what you want your future to look like. And you said that already. Who do you want to be? What do you want your life to look like? And let's stop allowing people who really are just pieces of crap to live free in our minds. Because that's what we're doing by letting them sit there. They're living rent free in your mind, tormenting you day in, day out, stopping you from loving, stopping you from having joy, stopping you from having a life. Listen, they already had that opportunity to do that to you
Yes.
when they hurt you. Don't give them permission to do it anymore. Right? And if that means forgiveness for you, but I'm saying for those of you that's caught up on that, let's put that aside for a second. You ain't got to forgive them. Hate them for the rest of your life for all I care. But live anyway. Live anyway. Live anyway. And for those of us that's not the case and we can understand and conceptualize forgiveness doesn't mean that I'm saying what you did is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But for anybody on this that's listening, that's struggling with that, how about let's bring in another perspective that you can not do that. If you want to be angry, be angry. If you want to cry about it, cry about it. But there's still joy. There's still hope. There's still people who love you. There's still people who are trying to love you.
Mm-hmm.
Stop perpetuating that stuff because of what somebody else did to you. You don't have to be hurt anymore unless you say you want to be hurt. Yeah, that's what I got to say about that.
It's definitely a decision.
It is.
It is a decision.
Big one.
Go and allow your life to blossom.
Yeah.
Allow your life to expand beyond. Because what happens is you end up stuck in that moment.
Yes.
You're like stuck there.
And 80% of women report struggling with negative self-talk.
Yeah.
At least weekly. Yeah. Right? And so often trauma, being mistreated, not being loved by the people we wanted to be loved by, betrayal, disrespect is why, right? That we tend to hear things in our head that, that emotional abuse, we hear that stuff in our head over and over again. And or because people mistreated us, we create a narrative that we're not good enough.
Yes.
We're not worthy. They did that because it must be something wrong with me. No, maybe it's something wrong with them. It says more about them than it does you.
Yes, it does.
Give it back to them. Give it back to them. Listen to the people who are telling you you're great. And that doesn't mean that you can't still have room for improvement. It just means everybody has room for improvement. Yes. None of us are perfect, but there are some things that are egregious, that are just really, really unthinkable.
Yes.
That it makes it really hard to really be able to say, you know what? I'm going to forgive them. But here's what I had to do as a therapist. Somebody probably did some of the same things to these people.
That's it.
And so what I have been able to help clients do is to realize that everybody comes into this world with a clean slate. At one point, everybody was a child and they were innocent. And then the world comes along and plants seeds, good or bad. And so if you are looking for ways to be able to let it go, is to see people as what they are, human beings, and take them off of these pedestals of perfection. And by you doing that, you also take yourself off of a pedestal of perfection. Most people have no clue what the heck they're doing, contrary to popular belief. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that one of the things you talk about pedestals, it leads me to something that a lot of times we also go and try to replace, the people that couldn't love us. So we get a new mother, we get a new father, and we put them on the pedestals, and then they end up disappointing us. And now we're dealing with double trauma. And I just believe that, understanding, as she said, we all have things that we're working through. We come through to the world. We are innocent, but then the world happens, to us, right?
Yeah.
And so, understanding that everybody's weak. Everybody, has a place where they may not come through the way you want them to. And so the best thing we can do is appreciate who's there for us, appreciate who, picks up the phone when we call, appreciate those that showing the love that, we're able to receive. But even if you don't have anyone telling you you're great, find it in yourself to tell yourself that you're great. Find it in yourself to say, you know what, I'm pretty good at this, and maximize on that. So I think that we have a job to do, to work on, as you said, because we talk about the thoughts that, we have those critiquing thoughts, right? And sometimes it's what we pour into ourselves. So, we have to counteract those negative thoughts with something positive. So in that, we have to pour into us something that is going to, tell us a different truth.
Listen, you guys have been tuned in to Conversations with Coach La. I am your favorite around the way therapist. We are Boston's only Black owned radio station that's on iHeartRadio. And you have been tuned into the virtual couch right now. We've been chopping it up about a heavy topic, which is mind over matter. How do you really start to move forward when you do have a traumatic past and you do have things that you ruminate on and you have this negative self-talk that's holding you back? How do you move forward with that? And we've been giving you different strategies and different ways of looking at that. I can't believe it. Like we are moving right along in this conversation. Now my clock says we got about 10 minutes.
Wow.
So I often, because I still right now as an almost 50-year-old woman, can y'all believe I'm almost 50?
You don't look it.
I'm almost 50. And, seeing all that I've been through, recently I started, uncovering and being triggered by some things around my own relationship with my own mother, and realizing that doing the work and seeing her as a human being has helped me to not hold a grudge against her. Yeah. But I cannot tell you that rethinking of those memories and those times, I don't still feel hurt. And I think when we think about forgiveness, we also think about we're not going to feel hurt anymore. There won't be any pain there anymore. No, because you'll get triggered and that memory can come back. Yes. And so I think that's the hardest part. If you decide to still engage with a person that randomly out of the blue, that moment, that time could hit you. What do you do with that? Because forgiveness doesn't mean you've forgotten. Yeah. And I think that is why I think that sometimes the absence of the boundaries and thinking that, okay, if I forgive you, we can now have a relationship. You may find that you still argue, you may find that you might even be mean, or you may even lash out, which I think happens to a lot of my couples that decide to stay together even after doing messed up things to each other. You have to have space, and the other person has to have space for you to still want to talk about that, move through that. And often when you say you forgive someone, they expect that you shouldn't bring it up no more. It should be done. You still on that? You still thinking about that? You ain't moved on from that yet?
Here we go again.
So I think the reason why I struggle with and why I talk about forgiveness being a process, because then you understand it's not a destination. It doesn't just, you don't just arrive there and stay there forever. You get to a place of radical acceptance. You get to a place of extending grace and empathy, but you don't forget. And that not being able to forget may mean that that is somebody that you do not break bread with. You can't sit across the table with, because the capacity to be able to do that is a lot. And that's the piece where I feel for us expanding this conversation about forgiveness, because you need to forgive them so you can move on. Somebody whose kid has gotten shot on the street, every day they're reminded that their child's not here. Every day they're reminded that someone took their child, especially if it was just out of the blue. And yes, we can bring in spirituality and, bad things happen. I get all of that. But that hurt and that pain does not go anywhere.
No, it doesn't.
And forgiveness just doesn't fix that. It doesn't. And I think we have to stop putting everything into these blanket boxes. And that, I think that's what makes people not feel understood or heard, because we keep putting everything into this capsule, as if that's the be all end all. And it's almost like saying you're fine. It's just, that's an automatic thing that people just say, just forgive them and move on and you'll be fine. Oh, baby, you still on that? Like, that doesn't give people space to process. And you're not validating the experience that they had. And no one's taking accountability for it. No adult is saying, you know what, that shouldn't have happened to you. We should have kept you protected. That was wrong. Even if it's not the person who did it, but the people around them, and then holding that person accountable. You know what you did to Jim was wrong, and we know what you did. you really need to make that right. You need to do something about that. Imagine if more people brought to the light and held people to the fire like that. What would happen? How many more people would feel healed and vindicated if folks would not just be like, oh, just forgive them and move on and act like it didn't happen?
Yeah. It's definitely not a one size fit all situation. And I think too, sometimes you, as you was talking about like your mom, you still have to interact with them. Not you have to, but you choose to interact with them. And I think it's all, you often also, as you're doing your best effort, and in that realizing that you may have made some adjustments, but this person is still who they are. And so they're giving you the same, it's just, it just, the trigger comes from the fact that they haven't changed at all. Some people, they haven't changed, or they're still giving you the same treatment that they've always given you, though you're trying, you're making an effort. And that's hard.
Right. Or apologize, but it's not grounded in an authentic apology where you acknowledge what you did.
Yeah.
Take accountability for it and what you're going to do differently, and then have the change behavior.
Yeah.
It's often, well, I didn't mean to do that. If that's how you felt, then, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That wasn't what it was. But if that's how you see it,
and
then
that's not helping.
So we just, those things bother me, that's what people have to kind of navigate.
Yeah.
So thinking about takeaways, thinking about some things we want to leave the people with, and then we also going to do the coach's corner, which I think I'm going to just tie that all together right now. So I got my little coach's corner that he came up with. It's so cute. Let me show y'all. Y'all ready? Oh, coach's corner. Yay. All right. So what is Coach's Corner all about? This is an opportunity for us just to reflect on this conversation, right? And key takeaways from what we've talked about so far today, and to leave you with something to carry forward on your journey. So thinking about so far what we've talked about, it's not advice, it's just a mindset shift. This is a call for you to reconnect with yourself and commit to your goals, and to remind yourself that you are worthy of peace, progress, and power. And it's really about building your capacity to be able to manage your emotions. Don't run from your emotions. You manage your emotions. And sometimes your emotion doesn't need a reaction. It just needs you to be still, to process it, to think it through, to talk to someone else, maybe to write it out. Often we think we need to do something with it, and they do pass. Just like happiness, joy, anger, all of these emotions will pass, and they come and they go. Thoughts come and go all day long. So you have the power to shape your truth. And I think, Jen, you've talked about this on your podcast. You have the power to decide what your narrative is. Negative self-talk is always grounded often in past narratives that were perpetuated onto you, or experiences that you've gone through that you haven't been able to your mind hasn't quite been able to conceptualize why it happened. And so you come up with you're not enough. You come up with, the world sucks. You come up with you'll never find love. You have these automatic intrusive thoughts. But you have the permission to reframe that inner voice and to give yourself permission to be your full self, flawed, glowing, and still very worthy. I talk about being beautifully flawed all the time and not trying to be perfect. That in itself allows me to extend grace, not necessarily forgiveness, but grace and empathy to people's situation. And I just have expanded it. Like it's more than just forgiveness. It's grace, there's empathy, there's understanding. There's all these other words you can actually use to help you conceptualize things that you would not do, that you don't agree with, that you think are wrong, right? And that's okay. So what do you think about that, Jen? What's your closing kind of takeaway? Yeah, I'm throwing it back at you.
I see. I think that forgiveness can be a powerful thing. And I think that it's an individual work, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
And the hope is that we're able to go forward in spite of.
Yes.
And that, whatever it may take, to just take one step so that we can take the next step.
Yes.
That's going to make the difference for you. And that's what it is about at the end of the day. It's about making the steps for you to get to the life you desire, to have the mindset you desire. And the peace that comes with that is worth the journey.
I agree. So in final thoughts, in reflections, confidence is not about always being the loudest person in the room.
Yes.
It's often about knowing you deserve to be in the room.
All right.
And sometimes it's just a whisper, sometimes it's a roar. But what we want you to do is to keep taking up space and to know that, you know what, you got this, and you can definitely bet on self. Hold on.
We are the Urban Heat. Expect the unexpected. Unorthodox radio from Boston and beyond. Heat981fm.com and iHeart Station.
Yes. So you know what that means, y'all. It means that we have officially ended the show.
Wow.
Y'all got to make sure y'all come back next week. Jen, you know, I appreciate you so much
Thank
for
you for
joining me
having
tonight.
Thank you for listening and watching.
Yes, thank you, everybody. So listen, next week we're going to be talking about refining success, professional, personal, and financial growth. So you don't want to miss the series 3 of season 7. Y'all have a good night, and y'all make sure you keep betting on self.
Bye.